Many people have been asking me how did I get my podcast up and running that quickly? Well, the secret is Anchor. It's the easiest way to make a podcast. And it's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. It can also help you to distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. And you can make money from a podcast too with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. If you're interested, find out more. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Adrian Tan Show. This is my podcast where I have deep conversations with the people who are enabling organizations to become ready for the future of work. My guests include a mindfulness coach, the folks behind Singapore's most popular investment app, and many more. They all have one thing in common, and that is to help level up your organizations through your people. My guest today is Stewart Chen. He's a tech entrepreneur with multiple exits with more than 10 years of experience with building and scaling startups. Highly passionate about building products that matters, he has over the years launched different digital solutions in the area of banking, trading, procurement, recruitment, e-commerce, and winning the Deloitte Technology Fast 500 from 2008 to 2010. Stewart is currently running Hireplace, which aims to bring speed dating to recruitment. They connect employers and candidates in a time-limited video interview format with multiple rooms across geographies and managed through a brilliant queuing system. Thank you so much for coming on to the show. To begin with, for people who are not familiar with what you're doing, how would you describe Hireplace to them?
So, Hireplace, we bring career fairs, speed networking, or even hiring events that are typically run on-site to a virtual format. So our customers, government agencies, non-profit organizations, and even universities that want to connect their talents to employers as quick as possible, especially during this time.
You mentioned about virtual career fair. Now, this is something that has been going on for quite some time. But I also do realize, based on what I've read of your website, there is a different element to it, which is the speed dating concept. Could you elaborate more on that?
Yeah, so if you have attended a speed dating before, basically you will get to speak to multiple suitors, right, in one event. So we are bringing speed dating concept to the employer and candidate perspective, where the employer would get to speak to multiple candidates, and in an event, typically we have multiple employees as well. So the candidates will get to speak to multiple employers too. And of course, these candidates actually already pre-vetted. So the employers would speak to, say, full stack developers only, right, or full stack developers, locals in Singapore, etc.
I'd say so. It really helped to speed up the entire process. So we will touch
Exactly.
a little bit on that later on. What motivated you to create Hireplace to begin with?
So I mean that's quite a long story, but the short version of it is that in 2018, I attended this event called HackerX. So HackerX is sort of like a speed interview event, but they focus primarily on full stack developers. So it's a US based company. They organize these events worldwide, right? So they came to Singapore in 2018. I was invited. So it's an invite only event. So you need to be invited. So I was invited to the event. I went there, and the first 30 minutes of the event, we had like companies talking about themselves, why you should join us, the perks that you'll get, and there were about like 7 to 8 employers and about 40 to 50 candidates. So I was one of them. And after that 30 minutes, everybody went into their respective tables or rooms. And as a candidate, you could be passive or active candidate. You then queue up for the employers that you want to speak to, right? So if that's like everybody will get 5 minutes interview. So if you are interested, you could queue up, with your resume or not, right? And queue up to the companies that you want, right? So from that event alone, right, I realized that it is quite exciting because in that event you get to speak to multiple hiring managers, right? I mean, compare that to a typical job board. You submit your resume, you don't get any response. it's quite demotivating. I wasn't looking for a job. I was just intrigued with an event like this, and I always try to find time to do networking. So it was an interesting event. So I had that in my mind, that's cool, but it has its own problems, right? I mean, logistically, it's not easy. So I thought that having that kind of event on a virtual format would make quite a lot of sense. And after a few months sitting on it, talking to a few couple of friends in the HR tech space, and I had Hireplace was actually doing something else. We were doing sort of like a marketplace for recruiters. So one day, HackerX was running an event in Indonesia, and one of my contacts attended that event and told me that, hey, like, you should pivot, right? I mean, your marketplace for recruiters, it's not going to fly, So I decided, yeah, that's what I'm going to do, right? So I pivoted the entire Hireplace marketplace recruiter marketplace into a speed interview by Hireplace, and that's where it started.
And prior to Hireplace, what were you doing before?
So prior to Hireplace, I was in Malaysia building a couple of startups. I had like fintech startup, e-commerce startup, procurement startup, and then I moved to Singapore for a full-time role in 2016. So when I was, so that was my first corporate gig, because previously I was just spending my time building startups, and moving to Singapore, I brought my entire family here. I have a full-time role, but I thought I could just focus on the full-time role and be happy with it. But being an entrepreneur, a tech entrepreneur all my life, I it was quite hard, right? I mean, in a big company, you are doing a small part of the task, right, compared to in a small company where you practically need to do everything. So while I was happy with the job, but I was not really satisfied, in terms of what I can achieve. So I started the Hireplace as a side hustle. So I woke up really early, right, every day. Spend my weekends, spend my family time building this up on the side.
Let's see, that must be pretty taxing, given my understanding that you have 2 kids and your wife, and I take it that your wife is chill with what you're doing right now.
Well, well, when I was when I was building startups in Malaysia, she's been supportive on and off, but startups, it's a long game, right? And many times, she said, look, why not we move out from Malaysia, due to the political situations and political situation and stuff like that. And I always told her that, look, there's something big gonna come, right? It's either a negotiation with a big bank or a big conglomerate. So I mean, when the kids came, I finally said, like, yeah, I mean, yeah, this is time, right? I mean, let's do something different. Let's really move out, right? So we move out, came here, but I in my mind, I always have I told her as well, look, you can get me out of a startup, you can, but you can't really get that startup mentality out of me. And true enough, just 2 years into a full-time job, I started something, right? I don't know, it's just in me. I just like building stuff. It's not been easy, but I told her, look, to make this work, I have to steal time, right? Basically, I try to not sacrifice family time as much as possible. I sacrifice my own sleep time so that doesn't affect anyone, right? So that's the sacrifices that I need to make, lah.
I completely understand where you're coming from. Given where I come from, where I started a few businesses myself, I do understand, and that right now I'm in corporate, I do understand there are certain areas where you prefer and wish to get more creative juice out from. And I think starting something on the side could be a weekend project or just an entirely new business could be a way to do so. And back to Hireplace, this thing started way before the pandemic. How has COVID-19 affected your business in any way?
So we started building this speed interview concept in June, right? And that's also because the investor that I've been speaking to since 2016, I think very early, 2 years before, decided that yeah, this speed interview thing will work, not the recruiter marketplace, right? So she put in some money, and we sort of started it then. I mean, obviously, nobody expected the pandemic to come, right? When we started it, we just know that we want to build a virtual hiring event that can be easily created and deployed from anywhere and scalable, right? I think that's the key thing. So we spent almost like 8 to 9 months building it, right? And when it was April, back in April 2020, that is when we had a lockdown, right? So I was already speaking to NUS at the time, and NUS, they had, because of the lockdown, they already asked all the students to come back from the interns. They have overseas interns, and they came back. I think about 200 of them, and they needed a place to go. And we told them that we have this thing, right, that could potentially speed up that the placement of your interns with local companies, instead of using, typically they use a manual method, right? They will send a batch of student CVs to the companies, and the companies will send their job description, and if there's a match, then they'll set up an interview. Right? We told them that this could take forever, right? So why don't you run with our event, where we could quickly match. I mean, the students can quickly speak to the companies, and if there's a match, they would take it from there. So they told us on a Thursday, I still remember, or in April, I think in March, and the event they want to run was on Tuesday, and we have not run a live event before. So we accelerated a few things, and we went live with them in a couple of days from Thursday to Tuesday. So it was quite an interesting adventure. I mean, they were the first beta event. I mean, we were just at the beta stage, so we went live. We had some problems at the time, but we did have quite good feedback from our first event.
And beyond career centers, which I believe would be who you're referring to when you mentioned NUS, I understand you have also worked with different companies as well, companies directly for them to outreach to speed up their recruitment process. As with all new technology out there, yours being quite innovative, I'm sure there would be some form of resistance when you try to pitch this across. What would be the common ones that you have faced?
Well, you got it right completely. Especially it's hard, especially when we speak to universities, right? So now obviously universities finding ways to go on a virtual career fair, but the virtual career fair, but the virtual career fairs are not new, right? I mean, they've been around for a couple of years, and the virtual career fairs that these universities are used to, it's basically sort of like a job portal with company names and their roles, with the ability to do a live chat, right? So it's nothing more than just a job portal with a live chat, really, right? I mean, they're used to this. They have their existing vendors. So just speaking to them, telling them that, hey, why, is this effective enough for you, right? Are your candidates? I mean, do those events, are they achieving your KPIs, right? Are your KPIs achieved after every event? Because when we ask them, what's your goals when it comes to running an event like this, right? So they say, okay, we want to have a lot of people attending, right? Companies and candidates. I mean, that's number one. But then when I dig deeper, right, you have like hundreds and hundreds of people attending the event. I mean, would that be really your criteria of success, right? Would it make sense that you as a career center be more focused on the employability of the student? How many percent of the students actually get hired from this event? Right, so when we dig deeper, they would typically say, yeah, actually we want our students to be hired after the event. We don't have the stats. So that's why we told them, look, why don't we just, in order for anybody to be hired, they need to have a one-on-one interview, right? I mean, these career fairs are not giving them that kind of interviews. It's more like employer branding. So we told them that we have this platform to create a speed interview between their students and the employers, and instead of a career fair, you can break it down into multiple smaller events, right? We call it like hiring events, right? It could last for an hour, right? Just now imagine a university might have multiple batches of students graduating in multiple time of the year, and events that they run, a career fair that they run, are typically normally just run once or twice a year, right? So the students that have graduated earlier, probably, you know it's the career fair probably won't be so relevant to them, right? So we told them that why don't you run smaller events, and some universities are actually doing it with us right now. We have likes of NUS, SUTD, but for some universities, because of their existing relationship with their vendors, and just what, like the old adage where what's not broken, don't fix it. So I mean, we do find it quite a challenge to approach these universities. But for the likes of government agencies like E2I, WSG, where they have been mandated to help the locals to find jobs, that I think, to speaking to them, is actually much easier, right? Because for them, they're just looking for ways, right? For them, it's very clear, right? They are judged by how many people getting hired from their activities, right? And when we run speed interview for them, we could actually match these candidates and employers very, very quickly, right? Because each candidate will just maybe get like 10 to 15 minutes of interview time, right? Speed networking. Typically, this batch of candidates won't even get a chance for an interview just based on the resumes, right? And I mean, resume is one thing. I mean, right now in the world today, there's so much focus on, hey, you have a perfect resume, you need to have all these keyword and stuff like that, and that would actually exclude a lot of people from getting an interview because they just don't have that resume writing prowess, right? They don't have the words for it, but they are good people, right? So for us, when we run interviews, street interviews for E2I WSG, we could easily get the candidates and employees talking to each other, right? Where they usually won't even get a chance to do it. And then if they like any of these candidates, then they could proceed with a longer interview, right?
So if I
So
were to paraphrase this, I think many, or rather some of the career centers, that what they are doing is they are basically mistaking smoke for fire. So you have a lot of rah-rah, you have a lot of buzz, you have a lot of traffic, but basically not really a lot of outcome.
exactly,
Whereas E2I, WSG, they're more outcome focused. They don't care whether they're doing it in stealth mode. It doesn't matter as long as outcome is delivered. So I do understand where you're coming from. And you mentioned from career centers to the people that the government agencies are trying to take care of, which potentially and most likely will be in the mid-career level. Does that also mean Hireplace is quite a position agnostic platform? Or maybe to put it in another way, would there be certain demographics that would not be suitable for Hireplace?
so Hireplace is actually a platform, just like Eventbrite is a platform for companies to organize events, right? They don't really organize their own events, so we don't organize our own events. We are a platform, and we let the universities, the recruiters, the E2Is and WSGs organize their own events. And some I mean, you look at the range of people that they serve, right? So for universities, they serve students, so those are young kids, and they are actually very good with tech. So definitely no problems with adoption there. But for WSG, we are looking at a wide range, right? I mean, even PMETs, we have people from above 30s, above 40s. I mean, we have even until retirees that attended our events, or above 55. I mean, the adoption for this, I mean, they definitely need more hand holding, right? But I guess with all the people that we have run this event with, they are willing to learn, right? And I mean, for us, we have really distilled the experience into a few steps, right? So they just download the app. If they can use Facebook, they definitely can use our app.
And has there been any interesting edge use cases of Hireplace since you started?
We have, yeah, I mean, we do have some organizations like they actually look at diversity in the workforce, or even women in tech. So they are looking at possibility of having speed interviews, but for mentorships, right? So instead of you interviewing for a job, you actually talking to a mentor that could, assist with your career, or answer your questions on the, let's say, a product manager's role, for example. That's one mentorship. But we also have, like, we actually are working with a company in Canada that is actually helping the natives to get jobs, right? And again, like, these people, they might have an email, but they have 100% have Facebook. They don't have a laptop. They only have a mobile. And again, the experience need to be really, really simple. And right now we are exploring with them on how we can even simplify it even more, so that the natives could really get connected with the employers, right, to do an interview. Because as we all know, without an interview, you can't possibly get a job.
It seems like the journey of Hireplace has taken many twists and turns to things bigger than what you have planned it for. What is the key turning point for you or crucibles in your journey that make you think back that you're on the right track?
Actually, the plan was even bigger than this. I mean, the plan, after going through a few startups, I told myself, look, I need to be solving bigger problems, right? Because without, I mean, bigger, if you are solving small problems, VCs are not very interested, right? I mean, it really depend on who you're speaking to. So I told myself, right, I need to solve big problems. And when I entered this speed interview thing, I thought that, look, in the future, the way for people to apply for jobs will no longer be through job portals, because job portals simply suck, right? I mean, I tried finding jobs through job portals, and I never have any good response at all. I mean, so, and with speed interview, if you are invited for an event, right? Let's say, for example, you are good in, say, you're a content creator, you're a marketer, right? A social media marketer, right? And you are in this group on Facebook or Meetup group or LinkedIn group. And if this LinkedIn group they are organizing any speed interview events, you'll be invited, and you'll be guaranteed to be able to speak to an employer, right? So I thought, in the future, this would be the de facto mode for people to apply for jobs, rather than going through a job portal and relying completely on their resume. And that was the actual the vision, right? I get all these different small LinkedIn groups, Meetup groups, Facebook groups, like lots of, like, groups that's dedicated to sort of, like, technical skill and stuff like that, like Flutter, Java developers. Let them run these events, right? And then, as a platform, we have, then employees can just come in and attend these events, pay for pay to enter, and really speak to all these vetted candidates, really. Because if you look at the industry right now, if you look at recruiters, if you want to hire somebody in Java, right, this recruiter might actually go into these Facebook groups, LinkedIn groups, and see, anybody is interested in this, right? So we provide that platform for these owners of these groups to do that, right, and monetize their membership instead, right? So it's a more of a legit way to get these candidates. So that was really the vision, right? But obviously, as you said, right, there's definitely changes in that vision. For now, VC money is also hard to come by, so we are very focused to keep ourselves lean, right, and really serve our customers right now. In this case, we have the UCs as well as the likes of E2 and WSG.
In the course of your work with Hireplace, you certainly should have spoken with many different candidates as well as many different hiring companies. And I'm certain you recently have came across this viral blog post about a guy called Dylan Lim. He basically is a owner of a business, and he's put out a blog post about 7 interviewees that he has met, and he basically was criticizing all 7 of them because the gist of it is they are not hungry enough. But again, different school of thoughts. I'm not sure if you have seen that article, and what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I've read the article. Actually my wife shared it with me, and he did two things, right? I mean, first one is that he gave a scare to everyone in his company, telling them that they have been retrenched. I think definitely that move was sort of a jackass move. That one I don't agree at all. Totally not showing any compassion. I mean, people would believe this, right? Definitely ruffle some feathers there. But on the other one, where he, lists down all the different applicants, saying that the young people are not hungry enough. I have to be honest, right? I think there are definitely people. I've interviewed a lot of people even before this, and I do see a trend. Maybe generation gap, that people are requesting for more work-life balance. Work from anywhere. They are the younger generation. They are more purpose driven, right? Mission driven. Not so much. I need to work to earn a living, right? So earning a living is not really something that they are into. So I mean, we definitely need to adapt into that mindset. We can't expect every single generation to be the hardworking. We have to work from 8 to 8 kind of setup. Because these people have choices, right? I mean, they're definitely more savvy. They can work anywhere, and they know tech, right? So they have choices. But I think we need to look at a balance here, right? Companies would expect certain behavior from their employees, but employers would also need to understand that we are dealing with a different kind of generation. I don't think there's any right or wrong, but listing down the applicants without putting their names, I think that's fine. And what's funny is that even after this person put it on the post on Facebook, people are still asking whether you have any, they want to send their resumes over. So you can look at, the times are bad, right? Times are definitely bad. I don't think there's many people criticizing the post. Actually, I see a lot of people agreeing, right? That they are. I mean, this is prevalent, with the younger, especially with the younger generation out there.
I would personally also wonder whether we as a society have been priming up the younger generation to have this kind of expectation. Because if you look at the salary survey that comes out from the government university, every year it has escalated, every year it has inflated, and an average uni grad would actually, well, at least based on last year, expectation will be around $3.8 to $4,000. And right now you're looking at a situation where you have a SG United traineeship thing, which pays you as much as 2005. So there is a shortfall in what they were told for the past decades of studying versus the reality. Of course, COVID-19 is nothing that we all planned for, but that could also be another key factor here. Now, back to the candidate front. A lot of candidates that I've spoken with are very nervous and very upset about what is going on, and very anxious about their future, especially those that do not really have any working experience. So again, the young graduates out there, you have seen many different graduates, you have seen how career fairs, how speed dating has turned out. What are some of your key advice that you would have for this group of people?
Well, I mean, I think the young generations, they don't have really many commitments, right? I mean, they don't have need to pay a car for housing. They're still living with their parents. I think the urgency for young graduates to find a job, I don't think that it's very high compared to somebody that just lost a job and need to feed 4 or 5 mouths in the family. So the young graduates, well, but if they are nervous, I think they they just need to take whatever's out there, right? There's definitely jobs out there. Not be so choosy, and I think it, go back to, don't look at the money only, right? So I mean, I see some asking for more, right? Because of their past experience or whatever. I think take this opportunity to look at the possibility of how you can grow yourself as an individual, right? If you are really interested in learning how to be a videographer, right? I mean, try to offer yourself for free, get a mentor, advisor, and work in that company for free, just to learn, right? It's not always about money because you have so many years in front of you, and the people say that it's not about what you know, it's who you know. I mean, that's also true right now. So you really want to go out there to learn, to and you don't have necessarily to be in a job as well, right? You can create jobs as well. I know there's so many freelance gigs out there, or you are young, do something that will scare you, right? Because if you are now in your 30s or 40s, you can't do that anymore, right? Because you won't be scaring only yourself, you'll be scaring your family, right? So let's just go out there, uh, and it's time to be street smart, right? Because going back to that previous question of the younger generation, I think they were brought up in, I would say, a very different era, right, where they are more pampered, right? You just need to focus on your education, right? You buy what you need, you get what you want. So they don't have, as you said, right, they are not hungry because we brought them up that way, right? And it's completely also our generation, our parents generation fault, our fault as well, because during our parents generation, they are literally thrown out in the street. You need to survive, right? And that kind of hunger, and you need to suffer a little bit to get that kind of hunger, right? And I think this is missing completely in our newer generation. And I mean, they just need to get out there.
I guess with COVID-19, it may be the perfect opportunity for those people to gather some street smarts and
Mhm.
street cred. And I guess really looking at it from an entrepreneurial lens, it truly makes sense for me to gain that feedback from the market. Whether you're doing, we probably will start off with a free pilot because you are nobody, and progressively, once the free pilot works, then you can of course brag around and tell people what you've been doing, and that is where your value will come in. So I
Mhm.
really second that this is the time to gain that experience where it would come in useful at a later stage in time. So on video interview, now this is something that could make a lot of people nervous as well. I have been through a video interview. The first time I did so was perhaps about 3 years ago, and it was my first time, and I was so nervous, and it was nerve wracking for me because they would be showing a countdown clock. They'll give you a question, and within 2 minutes, 1 minute, half, you have to answer the question. And I'm not sure whether I should look at the screen, look at my webcam. What are some of the best practices you would have for people who are new to video interview?
So, so what you've explained just now is actually the recorded video interview, right? So you have a question on your screen and you have a countdown to answer each question. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. So what we are doing is a bit different. We're not doing that recorded version. We're actually doing the live interviews with employers. So with the live interviews, it's actually more, we actually have students that say, wow, because of this live interviews, I'm actually more relaxed. It's a more relaxed environment rather than, answering question based on a countdown, right? So for us, the platform provides the
So
ability
it become
to.
more like a conversation instead of sitting down for a screening test.
Exactly. It's more conversational, and people are more at ease in this kind of conversation. And the more you do this kind of interviews, right, the better you get at it, right? And in one session, if let's say there are four employees, you can speak to four, right? And I guess your interview skills or your nervousness would not be there after the first 30 seconds.
Hmm. Okay. So that's really helpful. So people out there, please take note of this. You just have to put in the practice and clock up those experience points. So what's next on the roadmap for Hireplace?
So my experience speaking to universities, I think one of the hardest thing is to get these universities to pay, right, for a service like this. So our primary focus was really getting the universities, getting the students, because speed interviews would be ideal for this segment. But as we, for the past few months, I've been speaking to other event organizers, other platforms, for example, speed networking, right, for investors and startups. Some ideas also came to us where we also have casting, right? You can do movie casting and stuff like that. I mean, people can also do speed interviews on the platform. So we are trying to move focus. I mean, our core right now is the tech to facilitate the speed interviews, right? The queuing mechanism. If somebody missed the queue, what will happen? We took care of all of that, right? And we want to bring this tech. We started with hiring, but we want to bring this tech into other industry as well, right? That is not hiring per se. So we are going to set up a site called speedinterview.me, and that would sort of be like the Zoom for speed interviews. Anybody or any industry, any companies that they want to do speed interviews, they could just go to the site, create with a few clicks, they can create their own session, right? Whether it's a 30-minute session, 1 hour session, or even up to the whole day session, right? So that's where we're trying to go into.
Oh, there'll be a very interesting use case. So are you hiring right now?
No, we are very lean. As I said, VC money is not easy to come by. So we are really working on our profits based on our revenue. So for us, since it's a tech platform, everybody just go on the platform and create their own event. So we don't really need a big team. So for now, we're not hiring.
Right. And lastly, for people who are interested to learn more about yourself or Hireplace, where can they go to?
They can go to our website, hireplace.com, and contact us, and we'll be in touch.
Thanks, Stewart. Lovely conversation with you. Thank you so much for coming onto the show today.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the podcast. You can refer to the show notes for links to more information about our guests and their businesses. If you enjoy this podcast, it will be helpful to give a review on iTunes or follow me on Spotify. If you're using Overcast, please hit the star button under the episode. That will help get this podcast and the episodes out to more people who may find it useful. I will see you in the next episode of The Adrian Tan Show.